Caroline, this time last week we threw up the story that there was a real chance that WA were going to have a go at either getting a month of footy, maybe even the grand final, and things have rolled on since there, and you've got some more information.
That's right, Ed. Well, and you've got some interesting information which we'll come to in a moment about the grand final, but we know that Perth would love to host the grand final if in fact it can't be held in Melbourne. Sam McGuire wrote this story in The Age that the AFL has in fact booked the Joondalup resort for the next 2 months, basically, in case players need to be staying there as part of that sterile corridor to play footy and, in fact, play finals. We now know that they have also booked the Novotel resort in South Australia, in the Barossa Valley, the one where the Adelaide Crows boys got into a bit of trouble last year.
But it's a good place to go by the looks of it.
Well, yes. If, in fact, more finals than just the ones Port Adelaide host by virtue of earning them, there was a chance that a lot of finals could be played in South Australia. Tasmania is not out of the equation to host finals. So and obviously Queensland, where it's going to be very easy to get to, no sterile corridor really there at the moment. It's not very complicated. So the only place really finals won't be played are in New South Wales. That is a given. But Ed, the big one is the grand final, and there is a real feeling from the heavy hitters of Victoria, both in sport and business, and of course the state government, that Victoria or Melbourne can't, if at all possible, cannot lose a grand final 2 years in a row. And I think you've got some breaking news about top-level talks between those three parties, including the heavy hitters, the movers and shakers of Melbourne, that might save the grand final this year. Yeah,
so one of the biggest caterers in Melbourne is the big group, Bruce Keebor, and Bruce has been pushing, and there's been a lot of meetings behind the scenes between major events companies, Visit Victoria, and of course the AFL up to their neck in it. And there's a group called Respond Global, a medical group, Dr Ian Norton, who have put together this idea, which has been pitched already to the AFL and to Visit Victoria, to not only get the grand final, but also maybe give us the opportunity of having the big crowd for the Melbourne Cup Carnival and everything going on, right through to the tennis and the cricket, you name it. So let's put up the first graphic, and this is what the grand final day could look like. That is a ring of steel around that whole area, okay? So here's why. Because there is an opportunity to put 200 testing stations in there. Rapid testing results in 10 minutes. Results will be linked to your ticket and for tracking and tracing afterwards if there's any issues. It will cost somewhere between 2.2 million and 2.5 million for 50 to 100,000 patrons. So that's not a big deal. So that works. It works as far as the time's concerned. It works as far as everything.
So you're suggesting this plan is saying you could have a full house at the grand final?
This is to get anywhere from, say, 70 to 100,000 people. Let's go to the next part that I want to show you now. So here's what happens when you turn up at this area. There's multiple channel entries, screening questions, sanitised. That takes 1 minute, and screening questions. Then you go to the next bit, you get temperature checked, you do the swabbing and all that. That's 1 minute more. Then you go to the next test link to ticket, so you make sure your ID's right and everything's kosher there. You get your results in 10 minutes, right, to say that you're right. Results there, red, verified, link to a ticket ID is at 1 minute extra. And then you enter the situation. So what you would have then, Caro, is, so let's go through the negatives to this. The negative is it has a test sensitivity of 94%. Now, the chief health officers will say that 6% might be even a bridge too far, particularly at the moment. What people are talking at the highest levels now, particularly at the AFL, is that what you could do is you go on Wednesday and you get the normal test, the PCR test. So you get a negative, you turn up at the game, and you then get another negative, and then you're in. If you get a positive there, they will have on-site testing again of another PCR, and then you're out. At the moment, there is a 1 in 10,000 false positive test in this, which is better than false negative, but then you'd be able to be tested. If you come up at positive again, you don't come in. But that's looking at maybe out of 5 in 100,000 people who have a false positive. But it would mean then that every person in there, from workers to players to patrons, would come in, all those testing stations, so you could come into Punt Road, be tested, sit in a stand, you can go into Margaret Court Arena, Rod Laver Arena, be tested, have the whole thing. And then once you're in, then what we can do is we can put carnivals, we can have food trucks, we can turn it into something absolutely sensational. And the next time you have to pull your ticket out, it's just...
Remember bars, Ross?
Bars?
I used to love the Coburg bars of the diving board. I wasn't very good.
No, bars.
I said bars.
So just on that, just a question for you. So what percentage do we need to have? So that was amazing where you said 70 or 100,000. If we could get something up like that this year, but if it can't get up for this year, what sort of percentage would we need at the MCG to stop it from getting to Perth? You know?
Oh, well, I mean, they've got 60,000 in Perth, haven't they?
Because that's what I think. I would rather, as much as I'm a Melburnian, a 60,000 in Perth than a half-filled MCG, Caro. So I'm saying...
What's the difference?
There's a full stadium versus the optics of seeing empty seats and the spectacle of the MCG.
You've been at the MCG and played in front of 60,000. That's not a bad crowd.
The roar.
It feels pretty good.
The roar
and
is
remember,
incredible.
there's a genuine will to honour this contract.
The game of the year,
well.
Caro, has been Essendon v Richmond and the roar of that crowd with a full packed...
But the MCG, it's the home of football.
Well, there is one other thing. There is a contract in place.
And they want to honour the contract.
So what we're looking at is, OK, if all else fails and we're in lockdown again in September, Perth's a really good option.
Yeah.
Adelaide becomes an option. And, Caro, you were also saying that there's games, the Collingwood-Hawthorn or Hawthorn-Collingwood game will probably be played in Tassie. And I can tell you now that you can pencil in Melbourne-Adelaide round 22 in Darwin as well. Right?
Okay.
I've just got that as we came into the studio. That looks like that's going to happen. So what the AFL's looking for, obviously, is to honour contracts that are there, get the money that is there because everyone's really tight on it at the moment, but those opportunities to go to those places. Now, to your point, Lloydie, we're looking at saying, right, how do we get 100? How do we get 80 to 100 in there as best we possibly can? Could we all live with this? So the first question I put to you all, OK, as footy fans, would you be prepared to get a Wednesday test and then do what I've just outlined?
I'd get one
to get
daily. Daily to get to the grand final. Watch the penultimate game of the year.
Would you have any issue with your ticket and your QR coding being more stringent so that you are that person who goes in, so therefore your civil liberties have been taken for a second as far as you're there?
Not if you're a Melbourne supporter and Melbourne make the
Well, it happens if you go to...
Yeah, but I'm biased. I'm Victorian. The lockdown, we've had 5 or whatever it is. So this state needs life pumped back into it. We need hope and this could lead on to other events beyond the grand final.
And this is why the Bruce Keebles of this world have been so great, and people like Harry the Hirer, Rick Jamieson has come up with great ideas, and the whole of Visit Victoria. Everyone's working behind the scenes because if this works, it means the Melbourne Cup will work, it means the Boxing Day Test, the tennis has got a chance, we might get concerts going again, probably won't get the internationals coming, but we can actually make our own fun in Victoria as well.
What's the probability, you think, Ed? So,
well, I
love the creativity.
So everyone who needs to like this idea likes the idea. What it has to do is get past the Chief Health Officer, and he has to tick it off, and that's fair enough because that's his job. But I think if no one has so far overlaid in that other test on the Wednesday, and everyone I've spoken to in my straw polling has said, I'm there, like you. I'll bring my own stick and put up my own nose.